I suppose today's kind of a busy day, but not on the fantasy basketball front. Happy Election Day to all of you, however you may be dealing with this one. Sitting and stewing in your own juices, perhaps. I would recommend distract yourself, perhaps with a fantasy basketball podcast. And that is where I come into the picture. See what I did there? I teed it up for myself. I'm Dan Vespers, and this is Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Find me over on social at Dan Vespers, DanBesbris. You can follow Old Man Squad on Twitter. That is the network feed, which is up over 2,300 Twitter follows already. So that's kind of cool. Instagram is very small as of now, but that's where our short videos are going. That's Old Man Squad Fantasy. And before we get into the massive Monday recap, which, by the way, we're going to move through at a pretty good clip. This is not going to be a pause and talk about every team kind of recap show. I want this one to be, I'm aiming for 30 to 35 minutes. We'll keep it on a nice, good schedule. You guys don't need 50, and we'll see if I can do it. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games and bet on them as they happen. BetOnline is the largest selection of odds on everything from football, basketball, to hockey, to entertainment, to political props. Ugh, not today. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline. The game starts here. This is yesterday's absurd recap. There were 15 games. The entire league was in action. Let's talk a little bit about it. For Milwaukee, no Giannis in this one. They almost pulled it out. Damian Lillard and Darius Garland kind of trading enthusiastic late basketball. The only note, because I'm not adding AJ Green, it's a nice game, but I'm not adding him. Bobby Portis is always going to go huge whenever Giannis is out. I don't know the exact timeline for Giannis. Expectation is not too long, but this is a nice opportunity for Portis to really climb his way up the boards with a 21 and 18 performance. 3 blocks on top of everything else. That was pretty good. Cavaliers is nothing. Darius Garland, huge ball game. Donovan Mitchell, slow game. But like on the day-to-day, it's the same 4 guys every time, so we can just skip right on past them. The Warriors got Steph Curry back, lost Brandon Podziemski to flu-like symptoms after about a quarter and a half of basketball. But Steph, in his return, was solid, 24, 3, and 6. He only played 24 minutes as he's kind of easing back into things. And Trayce Jackson-Davis had a more serviceable game at 23 minutes, but he's more of a head-to-head streaming type. The Warriors, I think we may need to get a little bit cutthroat with. Andrew Wiggins, I'm going to hold on to. This was just an outlier, bad performance. Overall, he's been much better this season. Jonathan Kuminga, I don't think is going to be a 9-cat guy. Faded him hard during the preseason, and he's shown nothing to make us not want to do that. But it's the same dilemma that I run into with you guys. You all want to know from me, Dan, do I hold or do I drop on these guys? If I don't have any Jonathan Kumingas, which I don't know how much you should trust my opinion on what you should do with them, because I was trying to tell you to avoid him in the first place. If you didn't listen to that advice, my advice is still don't have him, but you can't trade him right now. Nobody wants him, so you're almost kind of stuck. Or you just cut bait and you never look back. But that feels, I don't know, maybe a little bit hasty. Draymond Green's been much better lately. Buddy Hield took another 14 shots in this game. He got 28 minutes, and some of that is because Steph only played 24. Some of it is because Podziemski left early. Some of it is because DeAnthony Melton is out for a game or two longer or more. But either way, Buddy Hield, you're just sort of riding the hot hand right now and see where this thing goes, because I believe he's been a first rounder so far this year. That's crazy. And he's doing it in 25 and a half minutes, taking 15 shots a night. Oh, buddy, that's crazy. Jordan Poole had 3 steals and 4 blocks. You want to talk about other guys that are in the first round? Jordan Poole, right now, and there's like 4 defensive stats a game. It doesn't feel like that's a thing that's going to stick, but man alive, has he been good to start the year. Valanciunas had a good one, probably bought himself a little bit more time on rosters at number 136 so far. You got to figure that the 0.2 blocks probably inches up a little bit. He's not a big shot blocker, but 20-ish minutes a game. He should probably be more in that 0.7, 0.8 range, something like that. So probably hold on to Jonas Valanciunas. Alex Sarr is a must-roster guy. Bilal Coulibaly finally had a slower ball game, but he played 39 minutes. That was a team best, so he's a hold. And then you get into the other two names. Kaishan George, who had 20 points and 6 threes while taking 19 shots. I am not big into Kaishan George right now. And maybe that is also a bit short-sighted because with Kyle Kuzma out, he seemingly has plenty to do. You know, it's not like there's been a lack of activity. He's number 64 in his last 3 ball games with 2.7 defensive stats. So, but in my take, I like to see guys do stuff a few times. I don't know that his fantasy game is the greatest. So the calculation on Kaishan George is how does he have enough usage every night to overcome the other stuff? And yesterday he attempted 17 3-pointers, made 6 of them. That's crazy. I mean, that's why the field goal percent was low, because basically every shot he took, 85% of the shots he took were from downtown, and it was not a low number of shots overall. That's nuts. But if that's what's going to happen with Kuzma out, then he would belong on roster. So I think with George, you could probably go for it as a head-to-head stream. I don't know that I trust him enough in Roto in a way where I actually think Bub Carrington is someone I trust more, even if he didn't make 6 3-pointers. Over the last week, basically since Kuzma went down, Carrington is averaging 12 points, 6 boards, 7 assists, 1.3 steals on good percentages. And I don't really care that he doesn't hit many threes. I like all the other stuff. So I'm much more into Carrington. And also, I think over the course of the season, he's a guy that they're going to try to get more out of. And, Brogdon's going to come back, and that'll hamper things a little bit. But long-term, Carrington is a very interesting ad, especially when you're kind of looking out. What is the season arc going to look like? And honestly, how long is Malcolm Brogdon even going to be healthy? I want to make sure that I have something to come back to here as sort of like the recap part of the show. And I think so far, the notes are probably on Healed, Pajemski, Kuminga. And I want to try to, you guys, I want to try to get through this at a reasonable clip. So I'm going to do my best. And I just need you guys to sort of hang with me on that because it's a big card. Lakers were horrible defensively, and Pistons only shot 47%, but a lot of that was just missing open looks. All out-rebounded the Lakers 55-37. Just an absolute punking on the glass. And we found out that Anthony Davis is playing through a sore heel, which he's been so damn good so far this year. I'm not going to get myself worried about it. We'll see if he needs a game off against the Grizzlies. I think he's probably going to try to play because I think the Lakers want to make sure they get off to an okay start this year. But we'll see. If Anthony Davis sits, Jackson Hayes will probably have to play a bunch of center minutes. They might also run small and run Rui at center for stretches. So I don't know that I would grab Jackson Hayes in advance. D'Lo had 11 and 8. Shot not coming around yet, but he got those 14 shots up. He's been much more involved over the last 2 ball games, so I like D'Lo as a buy low. And not much else as far as the Lakers are concerned. Jalen Duren, that's 2 good ones in a row. Jaden Ivey was excellent and belongs on every head-to-head roster, and unfortunately not all the Roto rosters because there's too many things that can go wrong for him. No, you're not adding Tim Hardaway, and Tobias Harris continuing to show signs of life. He was another guy who had a bunch of wide-open threes that he didn't knock down. But Tobias is number 58 over the last week, so he's come on after the very slow start, and I wouldn't be super worried about it, honestly. Boston beat Atlanta, mostly without surprises. Nimias Keita got the start at center with Jaylen Brown out, so everybody slid to a different spot. But the real winner with Jaylen Brown down is Peyton Pritchard. This was a blowout game, so the starters' minutes were relatively low. But for Pritchard, who was already on a serious heater, now there's just enough stuff for him to do. Where you're not relying on Pritchard trying to get it done in like 22 minutes. With Brown out, he's going to see more like 25, 26. When Horford sits, it's useful for him. Basically, anytime one Celtic is out, Peyton Pritchard is a guy who's going to get a bump. So he's someone that should be getting streamed until if or when it turns a little sour. Otherwise, the Celtics, relatively predictable, took care of business very quickly in this ballgame. And it certainly got easier when Trae Young went out with a rib sprain. Hopefully that doesn't last too long. He didn't play well. You have to think that this is something that was probably going on even before he exited the ball game. And so now you're left, and the blowout screwed up a lot of the ability to assess this game. Onyeka Okongwu was good, so that was nice to see. Keaton Wallace had 4 steals and 2 blocks. I don't think I'm adding him. David Roddy, Garrison Matthews, all these guys are going to do a little bit more if Trae Young has to miss any time. I would say, and Wallace is probably the guy who sees the biggest bump from complete non-factor to actually playing some kind of meaningful minutes. I'm not adding anybody until I see what the Hawks look like if Trae Young does have to miss a ball game. So you're holding Dyson Daniels, you're holding Jalen Johnson, you're holding Okongwu. Honestly, I don't know that you need to hold Clint Capella. I'm going to say that after almost every game he plays. He's number 142, and I don't know that this gets better. And then the other guys, you just let's wait and see. And Risa Shea, I mean, head-to-head, he's probably startable. Roto, he's not. Memphis lost to Brooklyn, not for lack of trying, from Zach Edey, who had his first real big breakout game, 25-12 with 4 blocks on great field goal percent. This is a guy that if you drafted, you were sitting on him. It wasn't like you were going to move on from Edey, not after a week and a half, 2 weeks of disappointing play. He was, trying to remember where he was in sort of our bucket board. I think we were medium high on Edey. He was like the second. He was before the Flyers, basically. He was in that last bucket of guys that seemed relatively trustworthy. So you were sitting on him anyway. And then JJJ was fine. John Morant was fine. Scottie Pippen Jr. is a decent fill-in. Santi Aldama is an okay fill-in. And I told everybody I wasn't really ready to trust Jalen Wells, and I remain not fully ready to trust Jalen Wells. And really, of the fill-ins, Pippen is my favorite. Aldama's like a deep second place, and then Wells is not even really on the radar. You also got an okay game out of Jake LaRavia, but I'm not doing anything with that. Nick Claxton finally got a starting nod for Brooklyn. Hopefully this is the turning point for him to get his season on track, coming off of the preseason injury. Cam Thomas has ground to a halt after a very fast start. He's down to number 86 now in 9-cat, which is kind of where we thought he would settle. So this is not a surprise at all. Dennis Schroeder, another good ball game. Cam Johnson, another good ball game. Dorian Finney-Smith kind of filling in for Ben Simmons, basically, and he was solid. And the Finney-Smith thing is, let's just go with you can play him when either Claxton or Ben Simmons sits. How about that? Fair? Great. Let's keep going. No Kevin Huerter for the Kings again. This time it was Keon Ellis who got most of the shooting guard minutes instead of Malik Monk, and it makes it kind of hard to trust either one of those guys, so I'm not gonna. The Miami Heat. Another situation where there's just sort of 4 guys that you reliably trust day to day, and you don't have to worry about the rest. Great. Let's keep going. We got a lot to cover. No reason to sit on that ball game. In fact, let's take a very brief commercial break. Utah beat Chicago in a high-scoring game. Jazz finally a pulse. John Collins was mega with no Lowry Markkanen around. Keontae George went huge. Finally a good game out of Keontae George. Just push him back inside no, he's still outside the top 200. I mean, he's going to be a wreck for fantasy folks that are not punting multiple categories. But this was a fun one, so just, say thank you and move on. It was nice to see, and this was the bigger one for me, it was nice to see Colin Sexton actually get to do stuff for an entire basketball game. He had 24 points. It was not good efficiency, but he's a guy you can't possibly drop. And then Walker Kessler, another really nice double-double, so that is working out great. Chicago, this is kind of a story, although we'll see what Zach LaVine's situation is. LaVine sat this one out, so Ayo Dosunmu got 35 minutes in a fill-in and was awesome. And that's the thing. Ayo is a great fantasy guard when he gets to play because he's a high percentages guy, both field goal and free throw. He gets some defensive stats, not a ton, but enough to go along with some scoring, some boards, some assists. Very well-rounded player. If we find out Zach LaVine is sitting again, Ayo should be at the top of your injury replacement burger board because this is the amount of usage he needs to be relevant. Meanwhile, Vucevic is a first-rounder too. Go figure. The Knicks are surpriseless. Starting 5, start the starters. Houston's, this is fun. So Şengün finally got off of his slump with a big ball game, pushed himself back up inside the top 50 in overall rank. And one would hope that that gets better as the field goal percent continues to trend up, although I don't know that 12 rebounds is going to stick. So we'll see how it all settles in. Freddie VanVleet, signs of life. This is a very nice twist for Freddie, who with one half-decent ball game got himself back up to the 7th round. And, 2 more of those, and everybody can stop complaining about the start. I'd like to see a few more assists. The Rockets only had 21 in the entire ball game, so ball movement wasn't terrific here. But guys hit shots, and ultimately that's kind of what it comes down to. Who lost time? Jabari Smith lost time in this game. He was the guy that wasn't performing as well. So Amen Thompson got 33 minutes off the bench, and this is kind of what we're talking about. Anytime someone isn't clicking or is out, Amen Thompson, Tari Eason too, played 25 minutes, which on his normal pace is enough for him to have fantasy value. It just happened to be a little bit quieter in this ball game. And it's kind of why you have no choice. We all have no choice but to sit on the Rockets bench stars in the hopes that something breaks loose for them sooner than later. And Dylan Brooks, I think, had a little bit of foul trouble as well. So it's kind of a couple of things going on that worked, but these are not guys you want to be behind on. Charlotte was bad. Everybody was bad. I still think Trey Mann is probably a drop now with Brandon Miller back around, but it's hard to make a final decision after this ball game, so forget about it. Forget about it. Or if you're Mickey Blue Eyes, forget about it. Naz Reid, big ball game Naz. You guys know I'm a big Naz Reid fan. How could you not be? He's number 51 in 9-cat right now. I think we had him on the big jumpers breakout board. Dante DiVincenzo was better. Thank goodness for that. This was a much better game for him. That pushed his rank up into the 160s. I know, it's not where you wanted him to be. Mike Conley was okay, but unspectacular. He's sitting at 130 right now. And a lot of that's because he's shooting 30%. That would probably get him around top 100 if that levels off. I need a little bit more out of Conley, and I don't know if we're going to get it. So he's also kind of a borderline. But look, I think both those guys bought themselves a little more time. DiVincenzo and Conley, they both earned themselves more leeway on your team before you make any kind of final decision. Not a ton to talk about in OKC and Orlando. The Thunder are just destroying teams, and the Magic without Paolo Banchero are simply not very good. Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner are the safe starts. Goga Bitadze had a nice ball game here in about 27 minutes. No Wendell Carter Jr., Mo Wagner those two guys split the center minutes exactly. If you add them up, they played precisely 48 minutes of basketball. Both of them had good lines. But here's the thing. We saw this last year. Wendell Carter Jr. missed like 30 games last season, right? Something like that. How many games did he miss last year? Let's double check ourselves. 27. So close. In those games, Bitadze and Wagner pretty much split the center minutes. And neither one could really reliably get themselves into must-start territory. Goga was a little closer because typically he got the starts, and so he was closer to 23, 24 minutes a night. 27, almost 27, I'm rounding up a little bit. That's more than enough for Goga. But 22, 23 is not. Are we missing out if we don't pick up Bitadze right now? The answer is no. I don't know how long Wendell Carter Jr. is going to be out. He's seemingly a slow healer. He's got a couple of things going on. So there might be a week or two here where you get starter Goga. I think you're only doing this if you really, really, really need big man stats. Because he profiles probably as someone that's going to fritter around in the top 100 to 135 range, kind of that doesn't matter filler kind of guy. And that can be useful for teams. I have a roto team where I accidentally only drafted one center. That's a team where I'm probably good to pick up Goga and just squeeze a few games out of him, whatever I can get. But I wouldn't get excited about it. That's it for the Magic. For the Thunder, guys, we got to take the L on this one. I tweeted it. I'll say it on the podcast. I think officially Alex Caruso is the first guy I'm going to point to and say, yeah, we thought he was going to have a good season, and he's not. He's not. A lot of the other guys that are ranked lower than we expected are guys where there's just like some weird little thing going on. Jalen Williams got off to a slow start, and now he's pushed back up inside the beginning of the 4th round. And Jalen Johnson, who's ranked super low, but He's at 91. That's because his splits right now are 43 from the field and 67 at the free throw line with 4 turnovers a game. So there's all these things that you can look at and go, yeah, this is going to be fine. When Jalen Johnson is shooting well, he's a possible 20, 10, and 5 guy with over 2 defensive stats. And assuming the turnovers come down from 4, I would have to believe that they do. So there's those types of guys where I'm not worried, really. I'm not worried about Freddie VanVleet and his 32.5% shooting. I am worried to the point where I think you can just dump him and clear out a roster spot. Alex Caruso's not going to play the 26, 27 minutes we thought. Not unless, probably multiple guys get hurt. Maybe Lou Dort would be the one guy who could get hurt where Caruso would just jump into a big role. But if it's if Cason Wallace goes down, I don't know that's enough for Caruso. Maybe if Shea goes down, but we don't want any of these things to happen. So I think we can move on from Caruso. He's a guy that's going to need somebody out. Plus, it's only going to get tougher. Isaiah Hartenstein is not that far away, guys. He was a 4-ish week timetable, and he got hurt a week before the season. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we got an update in the next 5 or 6 days that Hartenstein is practicing. I don't think he's that far away. I think he's probably playing within the next 2.5. Let me give myself a little wiggle room. Maybe 3 weeks? That goes quick. Portland. I'd like to say they're surprising teams right now. I don't think they're surprising teams right now. Blazers are 3-5, and they beat up on a Pelicans team that just has nobody left. Poor Pellies. Time Lord was supposed to be available to play in this game. He didn't. Jeremy Grant is a sell high. Whatever you can do it. Anthony Simons is not a player I was super into. DeAndre Ayton is going to be fine. Denny Avdia is, I think, filler. Downgrade Denny to filler. Scoot is a mess. He's not someone you can start unless you're in multi-punt territory, and you shouldn't have been drafting him if you weren't in multi-punt anyway. And then Toumani Camara, who we've talked about on basically every show for the last week and a half, is a very, very good filler-level player. He's ranked right around the top 100. His steals are probably unsustainably high, but you're getting okay fantasy lines out of him pretty much every ball game. That's Camara again. For the Pelicans, if you thought they were shorthanded before, whoa, wait till they meet the Jordan Hawkins-less New Orleans Pelicans. New Orleans has 1 starter left, and I think they've got, 4.5 rotation players down? This is poor Pelicans. I'm not adding Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. I am streaming Jose Alvarado. Brandon Boston, I don't think Jordan Hawkins misses another ball game. So I'm probably not adding Brandon Boston, but it's mostly because I don't think he's going to start their next one. But maybe he does. Maybe Zion and Hawkins are still out. You got to go a little bit of a wait-and-see approach. Misi, 26 center minutes again, but he didn't do anything with them. So you can just let that one go. So right now, my favorite streams on the Pels are Jose Alvarado because he tends to get assists and steals. No steals, interestingly, in this ball game, which is really something against a Blazers team. And then, Hawkins is the guy you'd like to be able to stream, but if he's out, then you can go one click further down the board to a Brandon Boston. Miles Turner and Tyrese Halliburton. Finally. What is Miles Turner ranked? I don't even know. 95? Woof. It's the bad free throw shooting has been a big part of it, and the weirdly high turnovers. I do not have any Miles Turner on my basketball team. I thought he was going a little bit early this year. I had no big problem with where he was being drafted. But I had Miles down in bucket 13. I thought, which is guys basically I thought should have been going after 50, because that's where he finished the previous year. And everybody just kept taking him in the 40s. It's weird. It didn't make any sense. He's the kind of guy that I'm usually higher on than most. And this year it was the opposite. Couldn't figure that one out. Halliburton, of course, is the big sigh of relief kind of game. He's now up to number 79. He's up to 8 assists a ball game. He's still shooting 38% from the field and 71 at the free throw line. But, of course, the beauty part is there. That he's basically a neutral in field goal percent when the dust settles. And he's a little positive in free throw percent. And if you wipe those out right now, then he's an early third rounder, which is not what you wanted. But not only do you have to wipe out the bad percentages, you also have to sort of accommodate what that would do for his other stuff. So, if he's shooting 47% from the field, and mid 80s at the free throw line, his 15.5 points per game goes up to like 19, 18 or 19. And the assists are coming around. Everything's coming around. We're going to be fine. Panic not, my friends. Tyrese Halliburton will be fine. He's number 35 over the last week with 12 assists a ball game, but just can't throw a pebble in the ocean right now. I was watching the Pacers in this game, and Andrew Nembhard came back, so that kind of screwed up a little bit of it because Aaron Nesmith is out and Isaiah Jackson's down for the year, and sort of there was this kind of, okay, well, how are they going to mix and match this? Because they don't really have any backup centers anymore. Benedict Mathurin got the start for Aaron Nesmith, and Mathurin is a fringy, kind of a low-level injury play kind of dude. I was hoping we'd see more small ball and TJ McConnell, but 20 minutes isn't quite enough for him. You need just a little bit more than that. But keep an eye on the Pacers. There's a little bit of an opening here with the number of guys they have out. Mathurin was the guy that got closest to stepping through that yesterday, but I don't think I'm doing anything with that. Yeah, in fact, I've decided definitely I'm not doing anything with that. But, a top 100 over the last week for Mathurin, that's not nothing. I know he has a big ball game in there that helped the situation. But I don't think you need to race out and pick him up. Maybe head-to-head. Doubtful for Roto. Over on the Dallas side, no Derek Lively in this game, and so I don't think I was alone in assuming that meant Daniel Gafford was going to get at least like 23, 24 minutes, but instead, it was a heavy dose of Najee Marshall, who went huge. To his credit, he deserved the extra playing time. Marshall was amazing. He was basically the only Maverick with a positive plus-minus in this game, and the Gafford minutes, they got stomped. Klay Thompson is continuing to trend down. He's now ranked in the 80s or 90s, so he's settling back where we thought he would be, which is around the edge of the top 100 a little later when both Luka and Kyrie are healthy. When one of those guys goes down and Klay's 12, 13 shots become 16 or 17, that's when you want to play him, which is exactly what we said before the freaking season started. Luka is ranked 29 right now, but he's coming around. You ain't worried about that, are you? You shouldn't be. PJ Washington continues to shoot the ball horrifically, but 11 boards and 3 blocks that play, so you're holding on PJ. Toronto, they're cut down to their prime, but they damn near stole this one in Denver. Grady Dick is an amazing fill-in play right now. Ochai Agbaji is a decent fill-in play. Davion Mitchell is a great fill-in play. RJ Barrett has enough usage to be useful. Someone you should be starting most days, but this is the kind of game that you worry about. Big turnovers, bad percentage. Free throws were not the problem, oddly enough. But Barrett, Mitchell, Agbaji, Grady Dick, the Raptors are scoring a lot. They're playing fast. So, there's enough usage. There's enough offense for all of these dudes. And then Jakob Poeltl's obviously been great, too. What I am interested in is who comes back for Toronto first. It feels like it's going to be quickly. And then that probably ruins Davion Mitchell. But I think you probably can still roll with Grady Dick. I don't know if I'd play Agbaji at that point because Quickly's going to come in and take 17, 18, 19, 20 shots when he and RJ Barrett are sort of like the guys. And then Scotty Barnes comes back with the orbital fracture. And once you've got Quickly and Barnes back, I don't know that any of these fill-ins are going to be useful anymore. And certainly once Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk come back, then you know they ain't going to be useful anymore. But ride it while you can. The story there is don't pre-drop guys. We don't know when these other dudes are coming back anyway. I think maybe the big story on this card, which is amazing because 30 teams played, but my favorite story is Peyton Watson. Aaron Gordon blew a tire. He hurt his calf in this game, and we'll see. Calf stuff you figure takes more than 1 day to heal, but I guess you never know. Still, I think you got to add Peyton Watson pretty much everywhere, under the assumption that Aaron Gordon is going to miss a game and possibly a few. Peyton Watson is the perfect. Everybody's the perfect guy to play alongside Nikola Jokic, but Watson, his defensive stats is what I'm looking at the most. And Christian Brown, by the way, decent enough in this game. Not spectacular, but look, he'll settle in. We know. I'm not going with Westbrook. I know he had a better ball game here, but overall, his percentages and turnovers are going to be so bad that nothing is going to wipe those out. But Peyton Watson, I like. He's probably going to start in their next ball game. He's probably going to get 31, 32 minutes. And he's a 2 blocks a game kind of guy if he gets full starters minutes, which is amazing. And you can get that out of a small forward, power forward type. Love me some Peyton Watson injury replacement going on. Phoenix had a big late comeback led by Kevin Durant to topple the Sixers, who lose yet again. Kelly Oubre was okay with Paul George back. I am, however, now worried about Oubre because he only took 10 shots. He fouled out, so that was also part of it. But, you know, it's not like the minutes weren't there. It's mostly just that now you've got Maxey and Paul George who are going to take all of the shots, and I don't know that there's going to be enough for Oubre anymore. I would say hold to see how it goes, but don't be surprised if it doesn't go great. You're not picking up Yabusele. He outplayed Andre Drummond, but those two guys apparently now are going to be kind of fighting for minutes, and, you know, the Suns went small for stretches, and Nurk was beating up on Drummond. And Drummond's been a very disappointing stream with Embiid out. It felt like he had all the wiggle room in the universe, and he just hasn't taken advantage of it at all. I'm still going to hold Drummond because he's the starting center on this team, and he has, like, infinite rebounding potential. But it's been bad. Kyle Lowry's been weirdly serviceable, but I'm not going to trust Kyle Lowry either. So right now, obviously you play Maxey, you play Paul George. I think I would play Drummond and hope. And then with Oubre, maybe you watch for a game, maybe 2. And if it looks like he's still doing enough, you can drop him in there. You could probably play him and get away with it, but you know me with the games cap. I like to be a little bit judicious. This was Jusuf Nurkic's best game of the year. He got 28 minutes. Now, some of it is matchup. Some of it is him just playing better. Is this the start of Nurk getting to do more? I don't know, because up to this point, he simply hadn't. Royce O'Neal continues his hot start to the year. You can play him until he cools off. And then the rest of this is fairly predictable. Tyus Jones had a kind of his first quiet game of the year. He'd been very reliably good. And he's still number 77, so you're not doing anything with Tyus anyway. Spurs couldn't take care of the Clippers. Spurs led by, I think, 26, 24. Was that the number in this game? Or was it 30? Either way, Clippers came back. Nice win for the Clips. They needed that. Wembanyama, not for lack of Victor or Chris Paul. Those two guys were great. CP3, 14 and 10. Wemby, 9 blocks in this ball game. He was a block away from a triple-double. Wow. Jeremy Sohan left early in this one. Hurt his hand. He joins Devin Vassell on the shelf. If both of those guys are out, Julian Champagnie moves back into an injury replacement level play because they won't be able to yank his minutes around. There was sort of 1 too many wings right now, 2 too many when the team is healthy. But if Sohan has to miss time and Vassell ain't back, Champagnie's a guy you can play again. It took a couple guys going down, but he got there. And for the Clippers, big game out of Amir Coffey, but you're not going to do anything with it. Clippers are Norman Powell, James Harden, and Ivica Zubac. It was nice to see a slightly more efficient version of James Harden. He didn't get the stats he usually gets, but he didn't ruin you in field goal percent and turnovers. And look, it'll be fine. You don't have to worry about much with this team. We know exactly what they are. The Clippers are a 3-horse race right now. I don't know what Norman Powell is going to be when Kawhi comes back, but right now he's a monster, and his true shooting percentage is out of this world. But I'll repeat again, and I'm not going to go through all the ball games. The main takeaway here is that we're in that part of the year, and I said this on yesterday's show, we're in that part of the year where most of your adds and drops are related to injuries in the NBA. If you speed through this card again and just play the show on 6X, what you'll hear is Bobby Portis is a guy that stepped into big value. Ayo Dosunmu stepped into big value. Benedict Mathurin stepped into meh value. Peyton Watson stepped into big value. The Raptors have multiple stream level guys. Peyton Pritchard, Jose Alvarado. That's what's going on. And so I'll mention to all of you, I have now moved the burger board online. So I don't want to say permanently because it's online when I put it on Twitter, but it's in the mega Google Sheet now. So all of you guys listening, watching, whatever, you can access the burger board any time of day whenever you want. I'm going to try to update it as news breaks. And that's a good reminder. Updated. Let's see. When did I last update the burger board? Was it late last night or first thing this morning? I don't think I updated it this morning. But in any event, you guys, the link is in the show description again. You can find the Google Sheet where I have all the preseason stuff. I'm going to be tracking in-season rank movement. We'll have the big streaming calendar, which is different than the burger board. That's going to be on there, sorted into 3 burger, 2, 1, and 0. So you can access that anytime and just sort of understand that I'm going to try to keep it updated as best I can. But I'll include a note on, when I had the last update on there, so you'll know if various things change. Because I'm not home all the time anyway. Like today, for example, in the early afternoon, I'm going to my kids' Little League practice. Basketball today, so I don't expect much to change on the burger board. But now it's there. I am obviously going to port it over into our look-ahead shows, and I'll just probably share that screen instead of putting it at the end of the Word document. So you guys will get to see all of it lined out. It's a little bit more organized anyway. All right, guys, we did it. We kept it under 40 minutes for a 15-game recap. Oh, my dog's having a crazy dream behind me. I wonder if you guys are going to hear this. The big takeaways, again, just injury stuff. Guys that popped up that weren't before. Get out in front of it on a few of these things, and then maybe Bub Carrington, who we've been talking about a little bit this week, is like maybe the one guy you're pointing to, and even that's a little bit injury related with Brogdon and Kuzma out, and maybe that's a name that I should actually put on the injury board because we don't know what it's going to be like when those guys come back. So let's put Bub in the 1 burger zone, and now I can say that I updated it not at 11 p.m. last night, but in fact at 9 a.m. today. Hooray! Look at that. Dano did it in real time, but you guys didn't get to see it happen because I'm not sharing the screen. But maybe I could, just so you guys can see, those that are watching, this is what that's going to look like when it's all said and done. There's your burger board. Easy peasy. And I'll try to keep it updated, and it might not be perfect right now because, again, going through 15 games, you're liable to miss something. But if I'm constantly aware of it and constantly working on it, I think we'll probably be in okay shape. Like and subscribe, and drop that 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. Love you guys. See you over on social media at Dan Bespris, DANBESBRIS. You must follow on Twitter because when news breaks, I'm going to tweet about it. I'm not going to do a show unless it's like massive, massive, massive news. And that way you don't have to wait until later or the next morning or whatever. You get that info immediately. You can act on it immediately. And I know a lot of you play in first come, first serve kind of leagues where that becomes extremely important. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Again, I'm Dan for Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I'll see you guys probably tomorrow morning. And come hang with me. I'm going to be on the Roto World Fantasy Basketball Show with Raphael Johnson in about a couple of hours as well. See you soon.